Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Trying to get a beer before or after a Nats game and are unable to get the bartender's attention? Well, Walters has solved that problem and more. Welcome to Walters, where Walters' 24 self-pour beer wall awaits you. Ask your server for a beer card and hit the beer wall, pay by the ounce, and try a few suds before you settle on your favorite.
Follow us on Untapped to get notified of all the new beers we bring in.
2-1. Swinging a long drive right field, down the line, toward the corner, and gone again. Off the facing of the second deck, number 27 for Schwarber. His fourth in 2 games. Phillies 2, Nationals 1. Nola's 2-1. Swinging a drive, straightaway center field and deep. Herrera racing back toward the warning track at the wall. He can't get it. It's off the fence and in play. Hernandez headed home. Ruiz on his heels. Both are trying to score. The throw to the plate. 1 run is scored. The second tumbles in. Hernandez crosses. So does Ruiz. It's a 2-run double for Luis Garcia. And the Nationals are in front in the 7th inning, 3-2.
Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss. And a slider. He struck him out. And a curly W is in the books. The final score, the Nationals 3, the Phillies 2.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Thursday, July 7th, 2022, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at The Sit, Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Well, what a difference a game can make. One night after arguably the Nationals' ugliest loss of the season, an 11-0 loss at the Phillies, we got perhaps the Nationals' prettiest win of the season, a 3-2 win at the Phillies on Wednesday night. Who says the Nats don't win anymore? The Nats snapped a 6-game losing streak. Who says that the Nats can't beat National League East teams this season? The Nats now are 7-29 against National League East teams this season. Mark, it's amazing how baseball can work, and off some horrendous pitching on Tuesday night, we got some outstanding pitching on Wednesday night. This was a lot of fun to watch.
And it's not just that they got it, Al, but it's who they got it from. Josiah Gray striking out 11 over 6 innings. That was an outstanding performance from him. I think I would call it his best start in the big leagues. I know he didn't go as deep as he did, other times. I know he gave up the 2 homers to Kyle Schwarber, but everybody gives up 2 homers to Kyle Schwarber these days. And what impressed me most was, I think, 22 swings and misses, and 11 of them were off his fastball. We usually think of him as a breaking ball guy to get his outs. He was getting it with the fastball as well. So that was a complete performance from him. And it just left me thinking, I know everybody watching the 7th, 8th, and 9th were just pleading for the bullpen to hang on, which they did. But I felt like even if they had blown it, even if they end up losing this game, as demoralizing as that would feel in the moment, in the bigger picture, I would still have said this was a really good night for the Nationals because of what Josiah Gray did first and foremost, and also what Luis Garcia did at the plate, coming through with a clutch double. This was a good night for them. The fact that they then also won the game on top of all that, that just sweetens the deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, you could even throw Keibert Ruiz into the mix. He was a factor in this game. You got a very good outing from Kyle Finnegan. He was a factor in this game. So, yeah, a lot of things came together for the Nats for this win. But there's no question it starts with Josiah Gray, who pitched like an ace on Wednesday night. And he did this coming off one of his poor outings of the season. The last Josiah Gray start came in a 6-3 loss to the Miami Marlins at Nationals Park last Friday night. 6 runs in 5 2/3 innings. He, in that game, gave up a whopping 10 hits. But something that we've noted about Josiah Gray this season is, okay, he has had some bad starts, but he has tended to follow up those bad starts with much better starts. And whereas last season, his season kind of unraveled for a while, and it was one bad outing after another. This season, okay, he's had some hiccups. It hasn't been perfectly linear, but when he struggles, he usually bounces back. And boy, did he bounce back on Wednesday night. And he bounced back against certainly a big boy team. All due respect to Patrick Corbin, Josiah Gray on Wednesday night was not facing the Pittsburgh Pirates, was not facing the Miami Marlins. He was facing a good hitting team in the Philadelphia Phillies, and he ends up allowing 2 runs in 6 innings with 11 strikeouts versus a mere 1 walk and 4 hits. I mean, this was a dominant, again, ace-like performance by Josiah Gray. The 4 hits were 2 home runs and 2 singles. The 2 homers and one of the singles were by, yes, Kyle Schwarber, who it feels like no Nationals pitcher can get out right now, although they actually did get him out as the game went on. But 11 strikeouts, most ever for Josiah in a Major League regular season game. And when we talk about, well, what can Josiah Gray be? We saw the upside on Wednesday night, man. Again, that was a number 1 stud in a rotation who was on display on Wednesday night.
Right. And so even if he ultimately isn't an ace, a number 1 starter on a staff, because maybe he doesn't do that every single time out, you know that he has it in him, and that's a great sign. And it's not like this is the only time we've seen this. He had a couple 10 strikeout games in his career, including ones against the Braves last year. Keep in mind also, he just faced the Phillies a couple weeks ago and shut them out over 6 innings. That one was only 4 strikeouts, 3 walks. It was just 1 hit. But that's why I think this one was almost better. They've already had a look at him. You know, they have a sense of what he does, and he's able to not just have success again, but dominate in that manner. I mean, the middle of their lineup, he strikes out Derek Hall and JT Realmuto 3 times apiece back-to-back. Strikes out Nick Castellanos twice. Strikes out Hoskins once. There was so much to like here about what he was doing. And I mean, it's almost like just like throw away the Schwarber at bats because nobody can get him out. And the rest of the outing is almost flawless. The only other base runners were what? A single by Castellanos in the 6th, a walk by Hoskins in the 4th, and then in E3, when Odubel Herrera hit a little tapper to the mound that Josiah fielded through low to Josh Bell, who couldn't make the catch, and that's an error. That was so good. It was pretty efficient from him as well. You saw the complete package there, and a guy who, yes, on his best days, can pitch like an ace, and that's very encouraging.
16 starts now for Josiah Gray this season. He has an ERA of 4.14. He has a strikeouts per 9 innings of 10.24. So he is now up to averaging more than a strikeout per inning, which is just terrific. I mean, you love that. And, you know, we've talked so often about guys who don't strike out guys and how they can struggle. And, you know, you fall victim to the variance of the batted ball and all that kind of a thing. With Josiah Gray, man, he's getting swings and misses, and he's doing it pretty consistently this season. He's had a number of games this year in which he's averaged a strikeout per inning. He obviously did even better than that on Wednesday night. So can't say enough good things about Josiah Gray. It was great to see this. And, you know, we've also discussed how, okay, there's been more good than bad with Gray. And this is like one of those outings that really does reinforce that. It's not always great, and we'll see what he ends up being. But we see that within him is greatness. Within him is that potential to be what the Nats are just starving for right now, which is a top of the rotation type guy. And maybe he can be that, or at least a number 2. So very encouraging. And again, I just go back to this of like, Tuesday night was so demoralizing for so many reasons. And it's almost like the baseball gods, just when you need that helping hand, they extend that hand and they say, don't give up just yet, because we're going to give you something on Wednesday night that you're going to love. And like that juxtaposition of the hideous nature of Tuesday night with how encouraging something like Wednesday night is, it feels good if you're a Nats fan.
And it does remind you that as much as we want to believe otherwise, the axiom is true. Momentum in baseball is only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. And boy, was that the case in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So Josiah Gray was very good on Wednesday night, and the Nats bullpen was very good on Wednesday night. We saw the A bullpen for the Nats on display, and the A bullpen earned an A+ with what it ended up doing. Carl Edwards Jr., Kyle Finnegan, and Tanner Rainey. I mean, A to B to C. That's the way that it has basically sort of fallen into being here over these last few weeks with what the A bullpen has become. Tanner Rainey had not been good over his last 2 outings. Carl Edwards Jr. had not looked great here recently, but all 3 guys, Edwards, Finnegan, Rainey, delivered on Wednesday night. Edwards, a scoreless bottom of the 7th with 2 strikeouts. Finnegan, scoreless bottom of the 8th that included striking out Kyle Schwarber, swinging on 4 pitches for the first out. And Tanner Rainey, a perfect bottom of the 9th with 2 strikeouts. We didn't even get the requisite Tanner Rainey walk on Wednesday night. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 2 strikeouts. Edwards, Finnegan, and Rainey combined for 3 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts. So dominance from Gray and dominance from this Nats bullpen on Wednesday night.
We mentioned this the other night, and it finally happened. Tanner Rainey had a 1-2-3 inning for the first time since May 26th. He had 13 consecutive appearances that were not a full, clean inning. And I will say, he starts off the first batter he faces 3-0. And I look up, and out in the Nats bullpen, Steve Cishek and Andres Machado are furiously warming up at that point just in case. Thankfully, he got it back under control, strikes out Derek Hall, gets JT Realmuto to fly out. And then I love this 0-2, 2 outs in the ninth, a 1-run game. Didi Gregorius at the plate. You're thinking, okay, we've been here before, and he hasn't been able to put him away, and he ends up nibbling or whatever. He went right after him with an 0-2 slider, struck him out to end the game. No drama. He needed that. The team obviously needed that. But once again, I thought that Kyle Finnegan was the bigger deal. And it's not to diminish what Rainey did, because it was really important for him and his confidence in the ninth. But Finnegan's the one who had to face Schwarber in the eighth and struck him out on a high fastball. And then after walking Hoskins, he's got to face Castellanos, and he gets a double play grounder out of him. That was another big-time inning from Finnegan against big-time hitters. We've been saying all year long that while he's not always consistent and the blow-ups are pretty bad, I feel like his best moments have been better than Rainey's best moments, in large part because he's been able to blow away big-time hitters that he's faced this year.
So had the Phillies batters who came up to bat in the eighth been due to bat in the ninth, do you think that we would have seen Finnegan in the ninth on Wednesday night?
I think probably so. The fact that they actually had Finnegan warming up in the seventh in case the lineup turned over. Schwarber was one batter away. He was going to come in to face him. So I think that was Davey saying, wherever those guys are, no matter what inning that is, I'm going to go with Finnegan because right now I believe in him the most. Now, this kind of wound up being the best of both worlds. Finnegan gets to face those hitters in the eighth. Rainey gets to still come in the ninth and get a save and a lockdown and maybe a boost to his confidence. But yeah, I think if the situation was a little different, it would have been Finnegan in the ninth.
Yeah, well, Rainey certainly needed that outing on Wednesday night, and Edwards needed his outing to a lesser degree. So good job all around. Really one of the best pitched games for the Nats this season. I know that the list of candidates for that honor, not exactly a mile long, but still really good pitching by the Nats on Wednesday night. Are you a law firm partner looking for a better situation for your practice and a blockbuster contract worthy of Juan Soto? If so, you should call Mason Kalfas of Zenith Legal in Washington, D.C. He works with law firms and lawyers on finding the perfect match. No platoons, just superstars. Some lawyers switch firms because of conflict. Some lawyers switch firms for a better platform for their practice. And some lawyers switch firms for more money. You need the Scott Boras of legal headhunters working for you, and that's Mason. Mason will work with you to find a better fit for your practice and ultimately the best deal for you and your entire team. Call him today at 202-486-3535 or check out his website, zenithlegal.com. This is an unprecedented time in the legal market, and many top firms are looking to expand. Call Mason today. Zenith Legal also works with associates and distinguishes itself on personal service. Zenith Legal doesn't just spam resumes out to law firms. Zenith Legal talks to the right people and gets your resume in front of the decision makers who matter. Whether you are a Rainmaker partner or a mid-level associate, give Mason Kalfas at Zenith Legal a call today to accelerate your career. Call today, 202-486-3535.
Treat the whole family to a fun night of baseball with the Bethesda Big Train at Shirley Povich Field. Big Train Baseball is the perfect mix of small-town charm and big league talent right here in Bethesda's Cabin John Regional Park. Visit bigtrain.org/tickets to reserve your seats for tonight's game and all other home games throughout July.
Here's the pitch. And he pushes a bunt third base side. It's a foul ball. So Soto trying to bunt his way on, and the crowd is booing. It's a 0-0 game in the fourth inning. Is there some unwritten rule that you can't bunt in a no-hitter?
I think Nola hasn't allowed a hit yet. So
it's the fourth inning.
Offensively for the Nats on Wednesday night. So the Nats got back Juan Soto in their starting lineup. Soto started the game for the first time in 3 games of having been dealing with left calf tightness. Now, he was the Nats starting DH in this game as opposed to being the Nats starting right fielder. Got on base 3 times, 2 for 3 with 2 singles and a walk. Top of the first, a 1-out, 5-pitch walk. He and the Nats 1-run fourth, had a 1-out full count single to center field. Top of the 8th, had a 2-out first pitch single up the middle. I got to ask you about what happened with this single in the 4th inning. So like I said, 1-out full count single to center field concluded quite the eventful plate appearance in which we had a foul bunt on the first pitch. So for at least the 3rd time this season, we had Juan Soto, at the very least, flirting with bunting in a plate appearance, and he's doing it here in this predicament in his first game back in terms of starting off a lower body injury, left calf tightness. Why? What? Where are we here with these bunt attempts by Juan Soto?
You're reading my mind in the moment, Al. That's exactly what I was thinking. Why, with a bad calf, are you going to try to test it and leg out a bunt? Now, the Phillies were giving it to him, of course. The left side of the infield was wide open, and he must have felt like, hey, here's an opportunity. But I felt the same way when Bryce Harper would do this. They never get him down to begin with. It's not like they're even good at the bunting part of it. So why waste a strike attempting to do something that you're not that good at to begin with? It all worked out in the end, but it was a curious decision given the state of his leg. And then the rest of that at-bat, this was like the most entertaining random 4th inning at-bat that ends in a single you'll ever see. So you have the bunt attempt. You also have a borderline pitch that's called a ball that probably was a strike. And then you have Soto calling for time clearly after Nola had begun his windup. It wasn't even close. And he steps out of the box, and the plate umpire, Bill Miller, lets it go, which he has the right to do. And Nola drops a breaking ball right in over the plate, and Soto just stands there and watches it. Now that's strike 2. So he's fouled off 1 for strike 1. He's gifted them the second strike by just stepping out of the box, essentially. And then after all that, what's he do? Lines a single up the middle. That was such a great, dramatic Juan Soto at bat. I love that stuff. Maybe the process, was annoying in some ways, but the end result, it worked in the end.
And then when he was on base, he dove back to second base, and he was getting annoyed. He was annoyed that he had to dive back to second because of the calf, or he got all muddy too with the dirt. So I don't know, maybe he was annoyed about that, but it was pretty funny watching him in that inning. So whatever the motivation, just stop bunting, please. Okay. To me, once was enough, but this has come up now at least 3 times this season. I don't know if Davey Martinez is not conveying the message strongly enough, or if Juan just isn't listening to Davey. But it's been pretty clear that Davey doesn't want Juan doing this. So why do you keep doing this, dude? You're not supposed to be bunting, okay? You play right into the opposing team's hands every time you try to bunt. But he did end up getting a single, so I guess it did work out. No Nelson Cruz for the Nats in this game. He was out for a second consecutive game due to illness. Josh Bell had a second straight quiet game offensively. 0 for 4, left 3 men on base, but the Nats ended up winning the game. The big hit in the game coming from Luis Garcia. He continues to hit for the Nats. He had another multi-hit game on Wednesday night. Also got robbed of a stolen base. We'll get to that momentarily. But Luis Garcia in the Nats' 2-run 7th, a 1-out, 2-run double to deep center field for a 3-2 Nats lead. Great piece of hitting by Garcia. But what you also had on this play was Keibert Ruiz scoring the second run on the double and running straight through a clear stop sign that was put up by the Nats third base coach, Gary DiSarcina. Gary must feel like, I can't win. When I tell them to go, they end up being out. When I tell them to stop, they don't listen to me, and they end up being safe. I can't win if I'm Gary DiSarcina. I'm not sure that Keibert Ruiz should make a habit of doing that, but it did work out. The Nats scored 2 runs on that Luis Garcia double.
I think what it amounted to was Keibert just had his head down and was chugging along as hard as he could. And he was pretty close right behind Yadiel. He was on his tail. And he got there in the end. The reactions from everybody were fantastic because you have DiSarcina almost just standing there like, what am I supposed to do with myself? And then Yadi crosses the plate. And now here comes Keibert. And the barrel roll slide, and I'm putting slide into quotation marks here because there was nothing about that looked like a slide. But he got in time, and it worked, and everybody in the dugout enjoyed it. Sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good, I guess. I suppose the other part of this is, even though he is not your typical catcher and that he's younger and, has some wheels to him, it's hard for a catcher to stop. Once you get going, you can't stop, and he just kept going, and he made it in the end and didn't cost them. If that had cost them, we'd be having a different story here.
Yeah, that's not something you want to see happen often. I mean, if you assume that the third base coach knows best, and if he doesn't, then that's a different conversation. But if you assume that he does, you really should be adhering to what he says. To say nothing of, it is kind of disrespectful this wasn't like some late stop sign that DiSarcina put up. Like, it was pretty clear, like, okay, dude, like, slow down, stop. And Ruiz is like, nah, sorry, I'm not listening to you today. So we had that on the Luis Garcia 2-run double in the 7th. And then in the top of the 5th, Luis Garcia, a leadoff opposite field single to left field to beat the shift on a 1-2 pitch, as once again, Luis Garcia, with that vacant real estate near third base in a shift predicament, goes the opposite way to get the hit. He's become so good at that. And then he gets thrown out on an attempted steal of second base on a strike him out, throw him out double play. Although Luis Garcia was safe, and that's not an opinion, that's really a statement of fact. Like, you look at the replay, certainly that Masson was showing, Garcia was safe, and yet for whatever reason, the replay challenge resulted in him still being out. I know replay isn't everyone's favorite thing. I am a fan of it. I think more often than not, it does end up getting calls right. But this was an instance of replay just getting something wrong. I'm not sure what happened here.
So we're watching the Phillies feed on NBC Sports Philadelphia in the press box, and I'm looking at it and saying, okay, I think he's safe, but was I 100% convinced? I wasn't 100% convinced. I was about 99% convinced because it looked like the foot touches the base, but then there's a little extra after that that's almost like maybe that first touch wasn't really actually touching it, and it was that last little bit, and that's right at the moment that they tag him. So I'm honestly going to say I was not shocked that they said the call stood. I thought he was safe. Almost everybody thought he was safe. But as we've seen, unless it's 100% conclusive, they usually aren't going to call it. Now, maybe the replays, everybody back home in D.C., you thought it was conclusive. I thought it was almost conclusive, but not 100% conclusive. Either way, it's frustrating. It's annoying. It takes a long time to get something that we all thought. That was one of those that you watch it live and you're surprised that they called him out to begin with. Okay? So those to me are the ones that clearly something was wrong and it should be overturned. They didn't see enough to overturn it, and that's unfortunately, I think one of the faults of the system is that it requires a heavy burden of proof to overturn a call.
Yeah, I don't know if we were watching two different replays or not. What I saw in Masson seemed pretty clear that he was safe. So whatever the case, Nats won the game, ends up not mattering. Luis Garcia continues to hit. He's only drawn one walk. That is a bit of a problem here. He's got to draw more than one walk over a month plus at the major league level, but he's batting .325. He has a .333 on base. He's slugging .468, .801 OPS, and he's had some big hits for the Nats. He had another one on Wednesday night. Big game for Yadiel Hernandez. He was the Nats cleanup batter on Wednesday night with Nelson Cruz out for a second straight game. And Yadiel came through 3 for 4 with an RBI double, another double, and a single. So very good to see that from him. And I mentioned Keibert Ruiz earlier. So he had a single in this game, a one-out single on a blue pit to left field in that Nats 2-run 7th. But he also threw out another runner on the base paths.
He kicks, the runner goes. The pitch is low. The throw on down is in time for the out. Strike 3 is called on Castellanos, and a good throw by Ruiz nails Schwarber at second for a strike him out, throw him out double play.
Ruiz threw before he knew it was strike 3. Bill Miller asked Jeremy Riggs for the appeal. He said strike 3, and so good job by Ruiz not to assume that it was going to be ball 4.
Once again, we see the arm of Keibert Ruiz be a factor for the Nats.
And this has been a fun series to watch because we have the two best throwing catchers in baseball, statistically speaking, this season in Ruiz and Real Muto, and they are going head-to-head, tit for tat. They're both making perfect throws down there. And that was a big one, too, for Keibert because it's the first inning, Schwarber's already on base, and you're thinking, okay, we can't let them all of a sudden take an early lead on us again. And Josiah Gray bounces back from the leadoff single with back-to-back strikeouts. You get a perfect throw right on the money to get Schwarber. So props to Gray for being quick to the plate. That's a big part of it as well. But, think about over the last several weeks, every throw from Ruiz, even if it's a little late, they are all on the money, exactly where you want them to be, on the proper side of the base. They aren't high. They aren't off to the shortstop side. They are right on the money, giving the middle infielders the perfect opportunity to put down the tags. It's really impressive, and I would say at this point, 84 games into the season. The two most encouraging developments of this season for the Nationals are, number one, Josiah Gray's pitching, and number two, Keibert Ruiz's defensive work. And that's an important thing to have happen this year, all of that, from two guys that you really want to see that from in their first full big league seasons.
Yeah, and two guys who obviously were acquired via the same trade, the trading away of Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the Dodgers in that deal that was finalized last July 31st. So, yeah, you see those two guys doing well. You see those two guys do well in a game like this one on Wednesday night. And it's interesting you bring up Josiah Gray's delivery to the plate. I know that's something Davey Martinez had talked about recently, that Josiah was just a smidge too slow to the plate. And as we know, like, these fractions of seconds make all the differences when you're trying to control opposing teams' running games. So, I don't know if Josiah, in fact, shaved off the necessary fraction of a second to make things easier, but obviously things worked out with Ruiz throwing out Kyle Schwarber. Hey guys, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. Get yourself some Window Nation windows and take advantage of a great offer at 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com. Beat the heat with Window Nation. Save $200 off any style new window from Window Nation, plus pay nothing until 2024. Yeah, 2024. Lower your energy bills and raise the value of your home with new energy-efficient windows from Window Nation. Window Nation has installed over 1 million windows in over 150,000 homes, with 96% of those homes needing no follow-up service. And Window Nation windows are made right here locally in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. If your current windows are sticking or are drafty or are cracked or are hard to open or are locking when they close, you need new windows. Get yourself Window Nation windows, 866-90Nation or windownation.com, and make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you and ask for the deal. Save $200 off any style new window from Window Nation, plus pay nothing until 2024. 866-90Nation or windownation.com. That's 866-90Nation or windownation.com, and make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Toffee in open stance from the left side. The 1-2 is swung on and missed. And Cavalli picks up his first strikeout of the ballgame. 2 up and 2 down. And Dustin Peterson is next. Boy, that was a nasty changeup.
Game 3 for the Nats at the Phillies is on Thursday afternoon at 4:05. And we finally have an answer to the question of who the Nats starting pitcher in this game will be. Joan Adon will be the man. We have known for a while here the Nats needed to figure something out with Jackson Tetreault now on the 15-day injured list. And I guess by process of elimination, it came to be that it probably was going to be Joan Adon. So the Nats on June 8th optioned Adon to AAA Rochester. He got brought back up to be the Nats' 27th man for a doubleheader on June 17th in a game against the Philadelphia Phillies. He in that game allowed 4 runs in 5 innings. And so now he'll be back up on Thursday afternoon in yet another game against the Phillies. And I don't know if the Nats wanted to use Adon, but again, I don't know that they had really any other realistic options here.
No, there was one other option we'll get to here in a moment that they perhaps could have considered, but I don't think that was the move they wanted to make. What's curious here, and it's unfortunate in a lot of ways, when they sent him down, like you said a month ago, the idea was go down there, make some quality starts, work on your changeup, work on your fastball command, and then we're going to bring you back up and see what you've learned. And circumstances have dictated that he was called up after 1 start down there and then sent down and then called up again after 1 start down there. And so it's not ideal in terms of he hasn't had the opportunity to work on things the way they've wanted him to. Now, his last start was good at Rochester. He also then went on a little break, midseason break, like we saw them do with Cade Cavalli, Cole Henry, and others. It was a design thing. He wasn't hurt. But now, before he ever has a chance to come back and make another start for them, he's back in the big leagues facing the Phillies again. We'll see. You're hoping for the best, but I think we all acknowledge from what we've seen of him this year, you don't really know what you're going to get. I would also say this does not necessarily mean that he is here again to stay. There are some other options coming back fairly soon. They just aren't there yet. Anibal Sanchez, not ready yet. Josh Rogers, not ready yet. And Rogers got lit up in Harrisburg tonight, and that's 2 really subpar minor league rehab starts for him. That's a little bit of a concern. Sanchez was better in his last one. He's still building up. I know you're very excited for Anibal Sanchez to finally make his 2022 debut, so perhaps that's coming up soon. The only other possibility, and it would have been the big news-making possibility, would have been Cade Cavalli. They could have done it. He was on schedule. He pitched Wednesday for Rochester, and oh, by the way, he carried a perfect game into the 6th inning against Lehigh Valley, just up the road here from Philadelphia, against the Phillies AAA team. He wound up going 7 scoreless, struck out 7, only gave up 2 hits, only threw, I think, 76 pitches in what looks, at least from a distance without having seen it or talked to anybody yet, looks like his best start as a professional. They could have made the move. I don't know that they wanted to do that to him and have him make his major league debut on the road against the Phillies. But the way that went and the way in the bigger picture he's been over the last couple of months does make me think we may be getting closer to that date now when they finally decide it is time to bring him up.
Yeah, I mean, I have not been able to sleep just with the anticipation that I have for Anibal Sanchez whenever he does pitch at the major league level. So, I just can't wait till that happens. With Cade Cavalli, it is interesting. He did pitch on Wednesday night, like you said. He was excellent. 7 scoreless innings, 7 strikeouts, no walks, gave up just 2 hits. He threw a lot of strikes, 74 pitches, 54 strikes versus 20 balls. I think it's just still kind of odd with Cavalli because so this was only his second outing since an outing on June 16th. He had that break that you just referenced, and he still has not had this run of excellence here that you're wanting for. He had a little bit of one a few weeks back now, but that's a while ago, and then he struggled once. He got off to a really bad start this season at Rochester. His overall numbers for the season at Rochester aren't that great. He has an ERA of 4.54, a whip of 120. He's averaging 9.09 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, I'm sure Mike Rizzo would say, look, it's not about the overall body of work this year. It's about kind of where he's at that moment in time. But I would think, they've been this careful and conservative with him already. I would think they want to see a run of 3 or 4 great starts. Like what we saw on Wednesday night, they want to see that again, and then one more time, and then maybe one more time after that, and then call him up. So I don't know. I think for now they're kind of like, hey, let's go with Joan Adon. I don't blame them for that. Like I said to you on a recent installment of the podcast, I think it is a little disappointing that Cavalli's not already up at this point this season, especially given this team's pitching needs. But I do respect the fact that they're not letting their pitching situation at the major league level govern what they're doing with Cavalli. And that would be a very easy thing to do because they don't have options. And, I give them credit for they're figuring out other ways, even if that means basically punting on some games at the major league level. They're not forcing anything with Cavalli, and I think that's the kind of thing that could be rewarded with him being called up and then staying up at the major league level.
They're showing an incredible amount of patience here, and yeah, in some respects, you give them a lot of credit for that. I know as much as everybody wants to see it, I'm sure there's guys in that clubhouse that really want to see it as well, but they are sticking to it, and I don't know what the magic sequence is to make it happen. Does it have to be 3 good ones in a row? Does it have to be a month? Is this one dominant start enough to do it? I don't know. I'm just looking at the schedule coming up, and they face the Mariners at home next week. It's a quick 2-game series. That, if you're trying to set up a home game against a lesser opponent, that would be one that would be more appealing than the other ones coming up, which are the Braves. Then coming out of the break, you're on the road at Arizona, at the Dodgers. Maybe it doesn't happen until the end of the month. Maybe it doesn't happen until early August. But if this one was enough of a head turner that they thought, hey, maybe let's go ahead and do it now, next week against the Mariners would make some sense, and he would be lined up for that. Not saying it's going to happen, but if they're going to do it before the All-Star break, that would be the time to do it, not to wait and have him face the Braves instead.
That would make the most sense for sure. That would make the most sense if they are going to try to do something like that. So we are back on Cade Cavalli watch, and he's going to make his major league debut at some point this season. I think we all feel confident in saying that. It's just a matter of when, and we shall see. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on Twitter at @Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like to become a sponsor of the Nats Chat Podcast. Hit up Tim Shovers. Again, the email address is natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can get yourself a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt by going to natschatpodcast.square.site. That's natschatpodcast.square.site. nats.square.site. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast. And we leave you now with another look back at the month that changed everything for the Nats, July 2021. And we look back now at what happened on July 6th, 2021, what was a 7-4 loss at the San Diego Padres. This was part of a 4-game split for the Nats at the Padres. This road trip ended up being the final road trip for one Starlin Castro with the Nats, and it was in this game that we got an incident of Starlin Castro being thrown out by quite a bit at home plate on perhaps an ill-advised send by the Nats' then third base coach, Bob Senley Henley. Gary DiSarcina told us to play this portion of the podcast from last year right now. So, Gary, this one's for you. Enjoy this look back, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a line drive. Deep left toward the corner. And one hop into the corner. A fair ball. Castro heading for third. He's getting the green light. He's going to try and score. Here comes the throw to the plate. The tag by Caratini. And he is out. Bobby Henley sending Starlin Castro the relay from the left fielder Jurickson Profar to the shortstop Fernando Tatis, who has a cannon, and his one-hop throw was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, the send was interesting, and, watching Castro as you rounded third, Castro did the thing that you'll see people do sometimes when they're running, and it's usually not done by fast people, where, they're waving their arms or their arms are kind of flailing in the air, and I don't know why that happens, but that's usually not a sign of, you're running particularly fast or that you're about to be safe. It's usually something slower people do for whatever reason, and he ended up being out. Now, Castro did have another good night offensively, 2 for 3 with 2 singles and a walk, but him getting thrown out at home on that Yan Gomes went-out double in the top of the second and thrown out easily at home, one of a few outs that the Nats made on the base paths.